smaller than my pinky. Um, and I think it's just infinitely more important to get the bait in front of the fish than anything else. So, you got to find them, you got to be in them. And that's what I tell people a lot, and it might seem kind of counterintuitive for me to say this as a dude with a lure company that sells a bunch of colors. Um, but you really just need a handful of colors that you've got confidence in. And I don't necessarily think a fish is going to hit, a root beer, but won't hit, like a slightly darker root beer or a root beer with red glitter instead of a root beer with copper glitter. Some minute difference. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people get really hung up on stuff like that.
That pisses me off. when I got my favorite color and I see the same color, but with a different color glitter, now that makes me like take a step back, and I'm like, dude,
yeah,
wait a minute, bro. You know what I mean? At what point do I got to throw this?
Yeah,
other glitter.
There's just, there's infinite options, right? Like there's just everybody has all these colors. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of companies, and they all sell all these different things. And I think size and just general like shade are the most important as far as just color is concerned, right?
Right.
You want just the general profile and shade to be right, and whatever mood like that fish is in, if they're not being real aggressive, they might not want that bait worked really fast. Maybe you got to slow it down, or maybe they are really aggressive and pissed off, and they want something that's banging around all over the place for them to chase down, and that's all kind of stuff that you got to just adjust to and figure out and pay attention to when you're out there. And I feel like a lot of people get overwhelmed with this, what color is the best thing, and they think more about that than they do, what are these fish telling me right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to talk about this a lot, and I always try to figure out a simple way to say it, and I'm never very good at it, but that's really it. I personally, I got about 8 colors that I have thrown for years.
What's your favorite?
I've got a couple different sizes.
How much is a pack of lures?
They're all $6 on my website.
So if I had $6, I walked into Roy's and I had $6. What color would work? Because I hate that, man. I hate walking into the sea of lures and having to buy all of them.
I would advise you to maybe save up another $6 so you could get 2 colors.
Like a dark and a light.
Yeah, I would go with something like a midnight mullet. That's our color. It's got a black back, and then it's actually like a triple color laminate. So it's black and then purple, and then the belly's kind of like a greenish pearl, and it glows green. That one's dark. You can throw it in. I don't really like throwing it in like crystal clear water, but you totally can.
Right.
And get something like that, and then maybe like a baby trout, where it's just a really natural kind of translucent silver pearlish, or maybe OG blood diamond, red and white. They would definitely be just a couple of opposites. A light and a dark would probably be the way to go. That's what I would. You could even maybe do like toxic root beer, where it's like a dark root beer color, and then also do like pearl, where it's just like this kind of translucent silverish, got a little bit of like a purplish sheen to it. And that's because I do get that question a lot, and my answer is always the same to that. I don't get the $6 limit, but it's like, hey, dude, just get 3 or 4 or 5, get a handful of bags, but don't get like black and silver, black and purple, black and blue.
Yeah.
Get like black and silver,
a whole bunch of dark
silver,
color.
white and silver. Get like opposites, different stuff that you can go throw. And I typically just try to the smallest I could comfortably whittle it down and give people advice with would be 4 colors, and it would just be a light, a white, a bright, and a dark. So that'd be something, black, root beer, dark color. Bright color might be like chartreuse and white, or chartreuse and orange, or pink and white, just something really like out there. A light would be like a more translucent, natural looking, like I said, the pearl. I'm a big fan of the pearl. I throw that one a lot. It could be the baby trout. blue crab. I'm just listing my colors, but I mean, this can be applied to, I mean,
Yeah.
anywhere, just a subtle, translucent, natural, not out there kind of color. And then a white would just be a white, white and silver, straight white. I mean, you could have a white and chartreuse, and that could double as your white and your bright.
So you want a baby trout.
Um,
The lure is called baby trout,
yeah, the color's called baby trout.
which is
Some
a
people call it baby bass.
which a trout is going to eat this baby trout.
Oh yeah, I
So we're not the only ones to blame for the trout
yeah,
increase.
trout are
We
savages,
might
man.
have to put the limits on the trout themselves,
Yeah, good luck.
right?
Um,
How many years have you been doing this?
um, we've officially been in business for like 4 years, but we've really been doing it for 5. There was a lot of, like you were saying, testing and
Okay.
trial and error, and
So in the industry, full blown AM fishing, 5 years.
yeah, I mean, if you include the development
So
and everything, it's
so
5.
about a year.
Just to be full disclosure, yeah, it was about a year of development,
Oh
putting
yeah.
stuff together. Weren't trying to start anything, just we're just trying to we're really just having fun with it, man, and
Hmm.
messing with stuff, and um, it kind of just naturally became. I mean, because we were putting it together for ourselves, so after a while, it was
Yeah.
just like, okay, this is working really great for what we do,
Yeah.
and there was like this 6 month period where I was like, dude, I don't throw anything else now. Like
Right.
I used to carry. I'd have a couple different ones from this brand that I liked, and different sizes and colors and stuff, and just slowly was like, well, I haven't touched that in 3 or 4 months. Haven't touched that one in a couple of months. Haven't thrown that, and just got to a point after 5 or 6 months where that was it, and that's all I was throwing. And then we had
What was
kind of
one of
just
the first colors you made?
uh toxic root beer, baby trout,
Toxic
pearl,
root beer.
midnight mullet. All these ones I'm telling people about, like these are my colors, man.
So the rest of the colors kind of just fell in place. Like, okay, well, I got these people asking me this color.
A little bit of that, if I get enough, I really just try to listen to people, and the basic reality of it is like my 8, and this is kind of touching on a topic that I'll probably get to a little bit later, but like my 8 are different than your 8, they're different than that guy's 6, this guy's 12. I got buddies that throw one color, dude.
Mhm.
Like literally, that's it. Like Dunzo.
Just
That's all they throw,
confident in that
and
color.
they jack them up, dude. And it's like they got confidence in that color, like you just said, and they're not worrying about what they're throwing. They're just worried about getting on the fish.
Mhm.
And especially kind of in our like bay system down here, I fish the lower Laguna Madre where I'm at. You're in the upper Laguna. It's pretty similar stuff, but and I don't know the numbers for up here, but down there we've got like 63 miles or something of just, and this is east of the intercoastal, just wide open, clear water, sand pockets, grass, sand if you go far enough east. And there's some stuff in there if you know about like little undulations and deeper potholes and whatnot
Right.
that you could hit, but there's really nothing there that's gonna like hold fish anywhere. I mean, they're just out there grazing,
Oh, really?
basically following fish
So it's a
around.
lot of blind casting over there.
Um, Sort of. You could also, I mean, you could side cast. The water's clear enough. You can get up on a tower or something and watch them, or you can get out shallow enough and catch them, tailing and whatnot. And there's plenty of that. That's a way to do it. I know up here y'all have a lot of like little marshes and stuff that
Yeah. We
you
got
got
one
some
marsh that everybody knows about, and
you got some drains and
everybody just cruises over there, and beats it up.
yeah. Jeez, man, that thing never stops. Just turn that off. But yeah, so it's that's what I'm saying. Like getting on the fish is at least 90% of the battle. Argument
Hmm.
could be made for 95 or 99%.
Right.
Um, but once you're on them, that's when it starts. Okay, what are they doing? I know I'm on the fish. That problem, that's the number one problem. That's solved. Then you can start getting into like, I'm working this thing really fast and I'm getting a couple of bites, but there's more fish here. I think I should be getting more. Maybe slow it down, see if that kind of gets you a couple more. And you really just you're just trying to take in as much information as you can. And so I'm just throwing out some stuff that like I've noticed
Mhm.
and made adjustments to and has worked for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, this is
but this
the
is
Mr. Montgomery show.
yeah, but this
Nobody
is
else is
not
mad. Nobody else matters right now, dude.
yeah, well, um my point is it's not the end all be all, right? Like nobody can give you the 10 steps to catch fish.
Right.
It's just like, hey, this is some stuff that's worked for me. And if you find yourself in a similar scenario, maybe you can make similar adjustments and it can, but maybe you don't want to throw that color. You try this other one you had, or,
Yeah.
you notice something that I didn't notice and, maybe you catch, better fish over there. Um, but just to highlight like a really specific example, and there's been multiple days I've done this, especially like late fall when everything's just super calm and glass and there's not a lot of wind. You get out first thing in the morning and you can see the wakes, like 100% I'm on fish, catching a couple of them, as the sun's coming up, the little morning feeding period there. And
Mhm.
then sun gets up and a lot of light, stuff kind of calms down a little bit, and I might be throwing something that's, a little brighter. Like we got one called chicken shard. It's kind of like a fluorescent, like pinkish orange, a little bit. It's like a real shrimpy color.
Mm.
Um, and when you don't have a lot of light in the morning, that'll
Is
kind of
that like
pick
a
up.
yellowish one? Yellowy,
Um, Sort of. It's kind of like
yellowy
a
blondie.
translucent chartreuse in the belly, and then the top is a fluorescent pink. But that chartreuse colorant we have in there, it bleeds really bad, so
Mm.
it colors that pink, and it's like this. The whole thing together is like this fluorescent, like orangish. It's not super bright, but I mean, when that sun's just barely peeking up and there's like no light, you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Um, and in my opinion, it looks like, I mean, it looks like a shrimp, dude. It's just
Yeah.
this kind of like it's this orangish, translucentish kind of looking color, and um, I really like it. First thing in the morning, or as the sun's going down, or just not a lot of light out. Maybe it's real overcast or
Right.
something. That's like a bright I would use. Um,
What do you think attracts fish? Attractant.
well, that's a pretty loaded question. But let me back up
Oh,
to
oh
that
yeah,
last one
yeah,
really
yeah.
quick. Yeah. So, I'm throwing that chicken shart in the morning, and then as the sun gets up, you can start noticing I'm throwing at fish. I'm watching wakes and little mullet getting skipped
You
around, and
know there's fish there.
I've been catching fish, and so maybe my bites start slowing down. I notice a couple of fish like spook off the color, like I throw at them and they get up to it and take
All
off or
right.
something. It's like, okay, this is probably a little much for these fish right now, right? The sun's up, it's shallow, there's no wind, pretty calm. It's like, all right, maybe I'll switch to like baby trout. And baby trout's a really clear water, sunny, like that's the one, as far as I'm concerned. Um, I'll switch to something like that and then start picking up some more bites, and they're not really spooking off of it. I won't work it very fast. Maybe just kind of throw it up in front of some and just kind of skim it along the bottom, or just slowly kind of. I use a really light jig head too, so it's not like bouncing up and down. I can kind of
Like a
just.
16th.
Yeah, it's labeled as a 16th, but I mean the jig head. I got one over here. I can show here in a minute, but just making that adjustment based on the fish are not acting the way they were. They're not as aggressive. Maybe toning down that color a little bit, squeeze a few more bites out, and you know maybe they just keep hitting it all day. Maybe eventually they get tired of that one, and you size it down from there. I'm throwing a 4 inch. Maybe I drop it down to a 3 inch when they stop biting. They tell me, "Hey, I don't want any more of
Right.
this," and I'm not going to leave those fish. I mean, there was a day a couple years ago that's like stands out, and I literally was just walking in circles for like 3 or 4 hours, and literally what I'm telling you is from that day. It was just throwing that chicken shart. They kind of got over it. I actually sized down the chicken shart to a 3 inch. Didn't like that one. Went to baby trout. Started catching them. Kept catching them. Kept catching them. Just I was just walking in like this, like a football field. I was just walking
Mhm.
around literally 3 or 4 hours. About 11:30. Um, I had 30 or 40 redfish, and they were all just. I wasn't making a lot of noise. I wasn't spooking them,
Right.
blowing it out. I was just kind of slowly. And when I'm walking around and something like that too, I mean, I'm casting everywhere.
Mhm.
Just slowly. There's no wind, so it's it's easy to cast back, up, down, and Um, but if I was out there doing that and for some reason they started getting turned off of the baby trout, then I might even size, so I've made the color a little subtler. Um, then if they tell me they don't want that, it's like, okay, maybe I drop the size down and make that even more subtle. It's just this tiny little like morsel and almost just try to make it like impossible for them to not, it's just this little opportunity to just grab it real quick. And,
Hmm.
um, or maybe the opposite happens and they get turned on again and start
Right.
blowing bait up. And it's like, okay, maybe I size it up to a 5 inch or throw like a Mansfield Magic where it's like white with a holographic silver glitter in the belly and it's a little bit brighter and I'm
Oh
just,
yeah.
start working that a little
See, that
faster
color's
and
more my speed right there.
yeah. And so that's what I'm kind of saying. I mean, you might be listening to this, like, I don't know what those other two are, but white and
Mm.
silver, yeah, I'll throw white and
Oh yeah, they're
silver.
going back and forth to the
Um,
website and checking out the colors. Like, man,
oh, I'm sure
placing
everybody
their
is right
orders
now. They're
right
like,
now.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of just how I approach it, man. And I just try to look for little stuff that's different, and that could be a little sand pocket that's by itself, or if the tide's low, there's little grass floats that kind of form, and
Hmm.
might be there's a bunch of mullet jumping everywhere, and that doesn't necessarily get me super excited if they're just all over the place jumping happy, but I pull up to a spot and see a little mullet kind of skitter off that way, or another one skitter off this way, and
Right.
not a lot going on, but you see that I see that I'm gonna be there for a couple hours. Like,
Yeah.
that mullet's trying to get away from something, something's chasing it. Mullet aren't just jumping around dancing happy.
Yeah, for sure. They're not trying to get out
Um,
of the water just for nothing.
yeah, they're not just like announcing their
I
presence.
actually
And
asked a guide that why in the hell do mullet jump? You know, there's got to be fish over there, right, or something, right? And then he was saying that they might be trying to get away from something, right? Or they sometimes they'll get like these parasites on them, so they'll jump out of the water and smash the water back
oh yeah,
down to
kind of knock them off.
try to get it off them, something like that. I was like, man, that kind
Yeah,
of makes sense,
I'd say that's plausible.
right? I mean,
Uh, that's kind of the overarching theme, though. Is nobody really knows.
yeah.
Like, I mean, and that's kind of just what I try to keep in my head. Is it's like nobody knows what's going on. I don't know what's going on any day. I mean, you can look at dudes that have been doing it for 40, 50 years professionally. They've been guiding for that long,
Hmm.
and I mean, dude, you do 50 years and you're doing 200 trips a year. That's a lot of time on the water, man.
Yeah, man. If
And
you are a tackle shop that has been open for 50 years, you are doing something right.
yeah,
Right.
but it's kind of just like you can ask those guys too, and they'll just man, it's that's what keeps everybody going back. Like, what can you do 200 times a year, all day for 50 years?
Hmm.
Something that's always changing.
Yeah.
And you can find areas that are, I mean, 100%. There's areas that are high probability areas, and there's structure that you can learn about, and patterns that have worked for you in the past, and you can go try to replicate those. And a lot of times it'll work, sometimes it won't. But nothing's 100%. It's always different. That's what I think really keeps people like intrigued about it is and not to get too far into this tangent, but um, especially guys, man, because we're wired to solve problems, and
Hmm.
the problem changes every day.
Right.
It's like a new reward.
Yeah.
You just went
You'll
out to
tear them
this,
up one day, and then you're like, man, I'm gonna go tear them up again, and you
and
still
it
got
doesn't
shit.
happen, and that just makes you want to get out there that much more
Yeah.
because, like, oh, I thought I had something figured out, and you don't.
Yeah. That's what we like to
You know?
call figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that mindset when you're out there is just I mean, at least in my experience too. I mean, I haven't been around too long, but I think that's the best way to go about it. Is just like I kind of have an idea of what I want to, look for.
How
Or
old are you? Like 30 something?
27.
27, man. You ain't even 30 yet.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of hesitant to like, you know, give advice and stuff because I'm like, damn, dude, I'm like
Yeah.
this dude.
No one's
This
gonna
dude's
listen
been
to me.
guiding for longer than I've been alive,
Yeah.
or this other guy's been freaking doing it twice as long as I've been alive. And
Yeah.
um, so there's kind of that aspect, but then there's also like, but I've also kind of been doing it longer than some people because I
Right.
have. When you grow up in Harlingen, Texas, if you don't like to hunt or fish, You get out of there as quick as you can, man.
Yeah, you're either going to be hunting and fishing, or you're going to be making tamales.
There ain't nothing else down there, man. Yeah,
Right.
you're gonna be a freaking tamale dude.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. You're the king of fish or the king of tamales, one of the two.
And I really loved it. And yeah, I mean, growing up, dude, especially start getting into high school and stuff, all you hear is everybody like, "Ah, I can't wait to get out of here. It's so boring. Da da da. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go."
Or the border
And
patrol.
dude,
There's a lot of them that work for the border patrol too.
yeah. Shit, dude, I think they
Shout
started
out to
like,
them, man.
yeah,
Shout out to all the border
shout
patrol.
out to the border patrol, understaffed and doing
Man,
what they
I
can.
spoke to a dude this morning weirdly about the border patrol,
Yeah,
and he was saying that there's a $30,000 sign-on bonus,
I believe it.
$15,000 to get in if you get in, and another 15 after you
Yeah,
pass the training.
and like 5 or 6 years ago,
I'd be like, guess what? I'm in. Give me my 15,000,
yeah.
and
Oh, whoops,
I'm
I didn't
putting my
pass.
2 weeks in. You know?
Yeah, I didn't pass the test.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
I'm about to go spend
Whoops. Yeah,
$15,000 on AM lures,
come right back to
getting
Roy's.
all the colors.
Yeah, that gets you. That gets you a few of them.
Right?
Um, but yeah, that's kind of just how I approach it, man. It's just a bunch of little bits of information that you kind of just collect as you fish, and I think a lot of people miss it because instead of putting attention into that, they're like, "Oh, well, I could be throwing that color, or I could be throwing this
Oh yeah.
color, or I could be doing this," and it's like I don't even mess with it until I know I'm on fish and I'm not catching any.
Mm,
Then it's like, okay, maybe they don't want this one, and that doesn't really happen a lot. But like I said, man, if I throw something and fish spooks off of it or swims up to it and doesn't eat it, it might be a good idea to make a change because
right.
whatever's going on in that moment, they're not really in the mood for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I try not to be set in my ways, and I know as humans we kind of get that way.
Hmm.
I've noticed that in myself. Trying to force a certain color or something just because I've been catching them on it for a month. But that's just kind of how I go about it.
Right.
Like I said, you could ask 100 people how they do it, and they can give you 100 different answers.
Yeah. 100 different wrong answers.
At, well, maybe wrong for you.
Yeah,
At the
that's
end
what
of the
I'm saying.
day,
I mean,
you got to get out there. Like, there's no substitute for experience. I
right.
could sit here and tell you 100 fish stories about all these different scenarios I was in and what I did and if it worked or not. You go talk to some dude like Jay Watkins or, I know a guy named Skipper Ray down on the island. I mean, both of those guys have been professional guides for over 40 years. And hey, this is how I do it. This is how I look at it,
Hmm.
and you could go out there and it doesn't work for you at all.
Yeah.
But until you put 40 years
You can
in,
go buy exactly what they use
yeah,
and use it in your realm of fishing, and it just
yeah,
won't work.
yeah. And that's just part of it. You can't replicate that guy's 45 years. He could write a book and record videos and you could study it and memorize all of it. You could have him on speed dial, video camera, like talking to you in your
Right.
ear about, what you're fishing, about how to, and until you put your 40 years in, like you're not going to have that refined, just those instincts.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, that's the thing, dude. It's just every time you go out there, there's something else to learn. There's some other adjustment to make. And you just keep filing it away and filing it away and filing it away, and you kind of just refine your process and figure out your thing and the way you're doing it. And um, some people end up just becoming fanatics about one fish and one species.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's kind of like a big contrast in like the bass world. Um, You got a million dudes fishing saltwater.
None of them bass guys keep those bass and eat
Uh,
them.
I'm sure a few of them do.
Is
I've
it
eaten,
good? Are you
I've
ever
eaten,
eaten one?
I've eaten some bass. Yeah, I mean, I fished a couple ponds when I was a kid and caught some, and bass and crappie are pretty yummy.
Yeah.
Um, I guess you just got this little closed system, and bass anglers are. I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not a bass angler, but
Me neither.
I mean, when you're in a little closed pond and you've got 500 fish in there and you just start jacking them up all the time and
You
eating
know,
them, you're gonna
I'm
run them
not a
down pretty
bass
quick.
angler,
Like,
but I am a trout angler.
um, yeah,
And do you think trout anglers want to pretend that they're bass anglers? Especially now?
I think there's a lot of parallels. Um, The thing with the bass though is it's like you have now it's like what I was saying, man. In saltwater, whatever the numbers are, I don't know what they are, but in saltwater, you got a million dudes chasing 100 different species.
Right.
In the bass fishing world, and across, I mean, you got offshore, you got inshore, you got all these different ecosystems, all these different, base systems, and you got guys in Carolina fishing creeks and fishing marshes, and we got flats, and as far as the bass world goes, you've got 10 million dudes, people, right, chasing one fish, and there's different ponds and different structures in the
Yeah.
ponds and stuff, and